What is up guys, HAWKSAW here, and with Trials of Osiris just around the corner, many players are struggling to find Year 2 weapons that are also competitive in PvP. The reason for this is that simply to get into Trials of Osiris, you're going to have a fireteam leader that's 290 light or above. And in addition to that, light advantages are actually going to be enabled in Trials of Osiris, so you really do want to be rocking those Year 2 weapons to be doing your absolute damage maximum. So in this video, we're going to be going over non-exotic weapons that have great starting stats, and to find these weapons that had exceptional starting stats for PvP, I scoured the Destiny database. I'll link that down in the description of this video. But again, what makes these weapons stand out to me is their starting statistics. They won't necessarily need a bunch of perks to make them good, they often spawn in quite competitive. And perks really only act to exemplify this. Now, if one of your favorite weapons wasn't mentioned in this video, don't worry, I don't think it's necessarily bad, it just might rely on perks more than a lot of these other weapons in this video. Now, without further ado, let's get started with auto rifles. Now, the first auto rifle I want to talk about is the Dead Orbit legendary auto rifle, the PALEOCONTACT JPK-43. Now, what makes this auto rifle special? Well, let's look at its stats, and you can see right away that holy crap, this gun has amazing starting stability. Now, how good is this stability? Well, let me put it this way. You cannot find another Year 2 weapon with higher starting stability in terms of auto rifles. That's right, the PALEOCONTACT actually has the best starting stability of any Year 2 auto rifle, and that is absolutely insane. Now, the clear downside of the PALEOCONTACT is its range, but surprisingly, you would expect the gun with the best starting stability to have the worst starting range. But there's actually auto rifles that have even worse starting range than this. I don't know how that's balanced, but it certainly is in the PALEOCONTACT's favor. So if you get a PALEOCONTACT, you're really going to want to be looking for perks that accentuate its range. Something like Small Bore would be excellent, Rangefinder would actually be really good as well, and in fact the version being sold by the Dead Orbit vendor has Rangefinder on it. It's not the best perk roll I've ever seen, but it'll certainly do. Now, the next auto rifle variant I want to talk about is the SUROS ARI-45. This weapon is just randomly put in the loot table. You can get it in any sort of lootable event. Now, what makes this gun good? Well, again, we have to look at its stats, and you can see right away that the range of the SUROS ARI-45 is very, very good. In fact, this is the second highest range on any auto rifle in Destiny. It's only beat by a gun called the Answering Cord. Now, the thing about the Answering Cord is although it has a little bit more range, it has a lot less stability. So although you will want to look for some perks that increase this gun's stability, you don't really need that substantial of an increase to make this gun competitive. Something you should also know is that because it's a SUROS, and it actually has two instances where you choose between two middle tier perks, and these middle tier perks are usually the guns that increase stability, you have a really high chance when you get a SUROS ARI-45 to actually get some perks that substantially increase that stability. That's what happened with my SUROS roll. In fact, I made a whole video about my SUROS ARI-45. I got the absolute god roll for this gun, 2 stability increases and an increase to range. This gun is absolutely insane, the version I got, but again, you don't really need that amazing of a roll on your version to get a really competitive long range auto rifle. Now, the next gun we're going over is the ANTIPODAL HINDSIGHT Crucible Legendary Auto Rifle. And when we look at this gun's stats, we can see that it has pretty good starting stability and also pretty good starting range. So what's special about this gun? Well, it certainly doesn't have an unbelievably outstanding perk like the other two guns did, but there's literally nothing wrong with this gun. The starting stats for the ANTIPODAL HINDSIGHT are excellent, again, both in terms of range and stability. Although getting perks that would increase range or increase stability, or even something like Small Bore that would increase both would be helpful, they are not necessary. This gun simply has great starting stats all around because there's nothing wrong with it. It really is just a jack of all trades, useful in so many different scenarios. Now, since it is the Crucible auto rifle, it's being sold by the Crucible weapon vendor right now. The perk roll is not very good, but it will do in a pinch. Now let's move on to pulse rifles. Now the first pulse rifle we're going over is an old favorite, the Year 2 version of the Spare Change .25. This is yet again a Crucible drop randomly awarded at the end of a Crucible game. Now when we look at the stats of the Spare Change, we can see right away that the perk that really stands out is both the range and actually the impact. Let's go over impact first, because this is actually one of the higher damaging pulse rifles. Now this weapon will kill in 2 bursts on the Crucible if you land your headshots, and it's in the exact same category as the powerhouses before Taken King, like the Hopscotch Pilgrim and the Messenger. Now firstly, both of those 2 guns I just mentioned did not get Year 2 versions, so the Spare Change is one of the few high damaging pulse rifles that you can still find in the Year 2 version of Destiny. So if you like those higher damaging 2 bursts to kill pulse rifles, there really isn't too many other options. In addition, that starting range is insane. How insane? It's tied for the best range of any pulse rifle in the entire game of Destiny, so that's pretty good. Now with this Spare Change, you really will need to prioritize getting a version, getting a roll of this gun that has some increases to stability. You'll see my roll right here, I have 2 increases to stability and I haven't yet leveled it up all the way, but it should do. But the main reason this Spare Change is on here is because this was a kind of a viable option in the past meta. Before the Taken King, the Spare Change, there were people utilizing this Spare Change. There were people doing well with this Spare Change. And that meta, at the time the Spare Change was in Year 1, was insane. We had the Thorn, we had the Last Word, we had the Hopscotch Pilgrim, and even then, the Spare Change was a viable option. Again, it was often overshadowed by the other better pulse rifles like the Messenger, like the Hopscotch, but again, since those didn't get Year 2 versions, the Spare Change, if it was a viable option back then, it is still a very viable option today, especially since its competition has disappeared. Now in the other end of the spectrum, we have the HAWKSAW Crucible Pulse Rifle. Looking at the perks of this weapon, you can see that although it has great starting stability, it has pretty terrible starting range, the exact opposite of the Spare Change. You've probably been seeing more and more HAWKSAWs in PvP because it is such a great variant, and the version from the Crucible Quartermaster actually has small bore, so it increases the stability even more and increases the range. It's a pretty damn good roll that you can simply go and buy. So again, stability is one of the most important things you can have with a pulse rifle. You're going to be using this thing to medium and even long ranges, and so high stability is important, which the HAWKSAW has a great starting stability, and again, that range isn't great, but since it's a pulse rifle and you're shooting in bursts, it really doesn't matter too much, especially since this thing has a pretty high rate of fire, to shoot just 1 extra burst. Even if you're not doing your optimal damage, even if you have a little bit of a range penalty, shooting 1 or 2 extra bursts when the rate of fire is this high really isn't that bad of a thing. And again, the version that you can just go and buy right now has a great roll for PvP. Now moving on, the next pulse rifle we're covering is the HERJA-D. Now looking at the stats of the HERJA-D, you can see that its stability is also quite high. In fact, it ties the HAWKSAW. But wait, its range is better than the HAWKSAW. So the HERJA-D, is that just better than the HAWKSAW, which is already said to be one of the best Crucible pulse rifles? Well, there is some important differentiations with this gun. Firstly, it has a different damage profile. This gun shoots a little bit slower, but actually does a little bit more damage. It's also a HAWKSAW pulse rifle, so it's going to be shooting in bursts of 4 rather than 3. Now I actually have a HERJA-D, and this thing does work on the Crucible. It's actually capable of getting a 25 damage headshot, and since it shoots in bursts of 4, you can kill in 2 bursts if you get all shots to the head. The problem with this weapon is that it has quite a lot of kick. Now again, the stability of this weapon is quite good. It's very easy to get multiple shots on target. The problem again lies within the recoil pattern. This gun shoots up and to the left quite violently, and since it shoots 4 rounds rather than 3, that recoil is a little bit accentuated. As such, you can find yourself missing 1 or 2 shots from that 4-round burst. The number one perk you want to look for with this pulse rifle is one of the singleton perks that deals with recoil like counterbalance. These perks actually can alter the recoil pattern and make a lot of the guns just have purely vertical recoil. If you can do that with the HERJA-D, it's going to be one of the best guns for PvP in the game. Now let's move on to scout rifles. Now the first scout rifle we're going to go over is the TUONELA SR4. Now what's special about this scout rifle? Well, it beats the previous record holder, the Salvation State, to have the best starting stability of any scout rifle in Destiny. Not only that, but when you look at the stats of this weapon, again, it has the best starting stability of any scout rifle in the entire game, and there's nothing wrong with it. The range is also good. Rate of fire and impact, well, those are pretty average rate of fire and impact. It's going to be doing the same damage profile as the Vision of Confluence. Reload is actually better than normal. The only kind of downside is the magazine size of 13. But with a scout rifle, that doesn't really matter too much. And again, the reload speed being pretty high clearly makes up for it. If you can get a good roll on your TUONELA SR4, I would definitely consider taking it into PvP, and it's very easy to get a good roll for this gun because you don't need any perks that increase stability. You can just try to get completely different perks and you'll still have a great gun. Now if you can't find that gun, you can simply use the Hung Jury SR4. This is the Dead Orbit Scout Rifle. Although this gun's starting stability isn't as high as the previous one, it's almost just a better gun. Its range is better, its stability is barely less, the rate of fire and impact are exactly the same, reload is much better, and magazine size is better. And you can go and buy it right now from the Dead Orbit vendor. And the Dead Orbit vendor has a version with hand-laid stock that almost completely maxes out stability. If you like this kind of scout rifle in PvP, definitely go and buy yourself the Hung Jury. Now moving on, the next scout rifle we're going to go over is the SUROS SCO-43, and you'll see that it's a rare scout rifle. Now why are we talking about a rare scout rifle? Well, because of the light system, it really doesn't matter too much the difference between a rare and legendary weapon. A rare weapon can spawn with an insanely high light. In fact, I have a SUROS SCO-43 and mine has 193 light, more than enough to function extremely well in Trials of Osiris. Okay, so why are we talking about this gun? Well, let's take a look at its stats, and you can see that it's one of the higher rate of fire, lower impact scout rifles. A lot of players like this type of scout rifle because if you can find it with full auto, you can basically use it like a very powerful, longer range, more damaging assault rifle. Now what makes this gun special is it actually has the best starting stability of any other of the fast firing scout rifles. And if you like these type of scout rifles, all you really need to make it competitive is full auto and a stability increase. Heck, some players might not even need full auto. This gun again has a massive leg up on its competition because it has the best starting stability. So although you might be used to deleting a lot of your blue loot, you might want to take an extra look and see if you have any of these scout rifles lying around. Now the next scout rifle we're going to look at is the COCYTUS SR4. This Omolon scout rifle, you can see by the stats, is the complete opposite of the SUROS. The SUROS belong to the high rate of fire, low damaging scout rifles. This is the opposite. It is the low rate of fire, high damaging scout rifles. These type of scout rifles are capable of an impressive 3-shot kill on the Crucible, and a lot of impressive scout rifles lie in this category. The Jade Rabbit, the Gillian's Demise, and the Scholar all have this same rate of fire and impact. So what makes the COCYTUS special? Well, just like the SUROS, of its category, of its rate of fire and impact category, this gun has the best starting stability. Every other scout rifle that does this same rate of fire and impact in Destiny has worse starting stability than this gun. And as such, it's a clear choice for any players who like this type of scout rifle. Your ideal role is going to be less dependent on stability increases. And as such, it's definitely something you should keep your eye out for. Now moving on to the last primary gun type, the hand cannons. Now the first hand cannon we're going to go over is the UFFERN HC4. You can see by the starting stats that this gun has insane stability. In fact, it has the highest stability of any hand cannon ever in Destiny. To make up for this, its range and reload aren't amazing. However, the range, although it is low, this gun does enough damage, is in the middle tier of hand cannons, that even if you're getting a range penalty, you're going to be more than capable of killing enemies in 3 shots. Now this gun is just randomly awarded from a loot drop, so if you don't have it, don't fret because it has a brother in the Vanity. The Vanity can be purchased at the Future War Cult vendor, and actually looking at its stats, it has the exact same stability of 70s. So both the Vanity and the HC4 tie for the best starting stability. Now for both of these weapons, although obviously you should kind of look for some perks that increase range, again that isn't super necessary. The damage is such that you're almost killing in 2 shots if you get 2 headshots. The Fatebringer belongs to this damage category, and so a 3rd shot is simply to finish off what barely remains of the enemy's health. So although you might be getting a little bit of a range penalty if you're in medium range, again your headshot damage is high enough that if you're accurate with the weapon, which is not hard to be with a stability this high, you can easily finish off your foe. Now the next hand cannon we're going to go over is the Down and Doubt 00-0. This is actually the Vanguard hand cannon, so you can go to the Vanguard Quartermaster and purchase this weapon. Now what's special about this weapon? Well, when you look at the stats, it actually has pretty good starting stability. Not as high as the Vanity, but still quite good. The range is not great, in fact it's even less than the other 2 hand cannons we went over, but there's something weird about its impact. This gun's rate of fire belongs to the highest rate of fire category. In this category are other guns like the Last Word. And you can actually see here when I compare it to the Last Word, again it ties that rate of fire, but the Down and Doubt has better impact. Now sometimes there's statistical anomalies in this game and something like this is usually not true, but for this gun I actually tested it and it is true. The Down and Doubt was doing a little bit, it was a little bit, but it was something a little bit more damage than the Last Word. So why is this gun special? Well, it ties the highest rate of fire category, but it does more damage than any other gun in that category. Obviously something you should keep your eye out for. Now that's all the hand cannons we're going to go over. It should be noted that hand cannons really matter more about the roll than the starting stats. Although starting stats are important, again hand cannons depend more on the perks you have to make them competitive than initially the starting stats. So that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please remember to rate and share this video. It really helps me out. And if you want to see more Destiny content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me, the best way is on Twitter. That's going to be linked in the description of this video, as is my Twitch channel, which you can follow as well. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video. I wish you luck on Trials, and as always, have a good day.